Come here, Nazi. You're going to Guantanamo.
Oh my gosh, what did I do? Am I getting
The
canceled?
Democrats don't like you. They're going to cancel you.
Oh man.
This is Andrew Callaghan. He's the host of Channel 5 News, formerly of All Gas No Breaks, and he's a documentarian. He's known for his breaking news coverage of vitriolic political events, his tender portraits of American life, and his crazy clips of whacked out weirdos saying the wildest stuff.
I mean, I grew up big wigger, I guess you could say, you know what I mean?
Wait, what do you mean?
His latest project is a documentary on a man named Kelly J. Patriot, who we met at a Unite the Right rally in California.
So we're gonna get you. So you can't kill Kelly. Happy Halloween.
This is our conversation.
Watched the film a couple times. Pretty good. How are you liking it? How are you feeling?
I mean, it's good. It definitely is. It's a relief to get it out. I feel like I worked so much on it, and I'm excited to kind of close the chapter on the psychoanalysis of the far right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
It's I don't know. It's just like, as much as I like appreciate the film and it means a lot to me, I'm kind of just over the subject matter in general. Like, I have this project that I'm working on pretty soon called the Endangered Language Project, where I'm taking 5 critically at-risk languages in the American territories and just like documenting like the process of keeping those alive and teaching the youngest generation. So like, that shit's way cooler to me than QAnon psychology, but nonetheless, both are important.
Yeah, I think you also kind of burnt yourself out on it because this has been a couple of years in the making. I remember when you screened on tour, like a preview of the movie, and that was a couple years back.
Yeah.
How has it changed since you started producing it? Because I imagine you initially intended to release it earlier.
Yeah, definitely. But also, we also intended to meet Bill Joyner at some point. Like, that was in the cards. Like, we thought that eventually we'd be able to make contact with Mr. Joyner and be able to sit him down for a mediated heart-to-heart with the Johnson family. Unfortunately, that did not happen. So that kind of elongated the process of filming and caused us to sort of wait around for some kind of like psychic shift in Kelly's mind. But I mean, if we were to look at the very first shoot, that was April 11th, 2021. Then the very last shoot was Uncle Pill at the skate park, and that was filmed 3.5 weeks ago. The 4-year process, I changed a lot as a filmmaker throughout that time. Kelly changed, and that's kind of why I'm proud of it, is I get to see different phases of my approach throughout the movie.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What inspired you to start going to languages? Because that's a huge.
It just sounded sick. Like, I lived in Arizona for a year, and I started to make a bunch of friends who were like Native American, particularly in the Navajo and Tohono communities. And they were telling me that like Duolingo just started their Navajo language program, and that like a bunch of different Native tribes in the U.S. are trying to get the youngest generation involved in like preservation of indigenous languages to kind of keep the oral tradition alive. And I was like, damn, that sounds pretty sick to document. And then I learned that like not every endangered language in the U.S. is Native American. There's the Gullah Geechee language in South Carolina, Texas German, Hawaiian Sign Language, Siberian Yupik, which is a mix of Siberian Russian and Alaskan Inuit language. All this crazy shit. Also Louisiana French Cajun French rather. Just that sounds super interesting to me. Like, that's what I'm kind of setting my sights on for the future.
You know any fun phrases in any of those languages?
I don't know anything about any of the languages yet. I'm only going as far as Wikipedia, but that's typically where it begins.
Yeah. How do you start finding your subjects?
It really depends, because there's like 2 types of modes that we're in when we go out into the field. There's the breaking news, where you just go to an event that a lot of people are talking about, and people just gravitate toward the microphone like it's magnetic. So anybody with something to say is just going to pull up and start talking. Then there's like the actual documentary style storytelling, which takes place over a longer period of time. And we kind of choose that. So I'll go down like a research rabbit hole and figure out what I want to do for a documentary. And then I'll like, for example, we have something coming out in 2 weeks about West Virginia Greyhound racing. It's the last state race dog. And so like people don't care about that, but I'm going to make them care about it by showing them a documentary. Whereas there's other stuff like ICE deportations that we just covered in Texas that people are already talking about. So we're responding to public interest.
It's like if Weird Weekends had some serious episodes every now and again.
Yeah, dude. You know, it's crazy as Louis Theroux texted me yesterday. He was like, I love the movie. And I was like, what the fuck? That was like my favorite.
Crazy.
Stoked as hell.
I was wondering, like, you've been on the front lines of just about every major crisis that's happened in the last couple of years and every big emotional moment. What's been the most like impactful for you over the years? Some or a person that stuck with you?
I guess the most like immediately emotional that I felt in the field is being outside the courthouse in Minneapolis whenever they announced that Derek Chauvin was found guilty. I don't know why. I guess because the 2020 had been such like a loaded emotional year, and I also grew up losing some friends here and there to police brutality incidents who were unarmed. So just like actually seeing the justice system work in favor of the people and not to protect the police, that was pretty emotional. I don't know though. It seems as time has gone on, I've reacted less to things. I don't want to sound like some type of soldier or something, but I'm sort of desensitized to news events in general nowadays. I wish I wasn't. I'm trying to connect more with the times, but after 2020, I feel like we haven't even come close to that level of intensity since then.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like we're scratching the surface of that time period.
That's true. I think it's also just an overload of exposure. Like you can't, it's like surgeons. They're not going to feel heartbreak over every single person, but I mean, you got to be there to do the job.
Yeah, I feel like a surgeon.
Yeah, you're exactly like a surgeon.
Thank you.
Now, the reverse of that question, which one has been the most unbearable for you? Where you're like, I do not want to be here, but we got to get the shot.
So anything fucking Trump related, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's I have nothing against everybody who voted for Trump. I mean, it is what it is. You can vote for whoever you want. I don't think everyone who voted for him is like a moron or something, but it's just the repetitive nature of these events. Yeah. There's not anything new ever being said. It's just kind of like two-dimensional, repeated, parroted talking points that you've heard 1,000 times. And that's why this movie happened, is because he was hitting me with the classic talking points, you know, Hillary Clinton eats babies, Jeffrey Epstein is still alive, Suez Canal blocked, whatever. And then he's like, and Bill Joyner stole my fucking house. And that was just like the seas kind of parted right there. And I was like, all right, I'm going to figure out exactly what the hell happened there and where and when that coincided with politics. And that's
it's like a real moment in all the delusion. That's very interesting.
I never heard something like that before. To have Bill Joyner in the same evil pedophile cabal as Clinton, Soros, Obama, it just really made me realize and curious about how many more people in Kelly's shoes had a personal boogeyman that bled into the greater mythology that was introduced by Trump shit.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, that's the whole thesis of your whole movie, is that the way that these things happen is because something bad happens to people that fucks them up in a big way.
Yeah, and it causes them to believe there is this like nebulous force of evil that they can't even put a name on or assign a face to, but it exists and it's out there. It's like this dark cloud that's there to just swindle and deceive and betray every hardworking American patriot who did the right thing.
Yeah.
In reality, what we're seeing now is that I opened my phone up this morning and I saw a Wall Street Journal feature called Bill Gates' Favorite Things About Donald Trump. And that just kind of blew my mind because I realized, oh my God, Trump campaigned against the deep state, but he got the deep state in the White House.
Yeah.
Now he's with like all these people that he claimed were like these satanic, evil, vaccine pushing eugenicists are now his little confidant circle of advisors. And it's so crazy that once again, regular working American people are getting deceived by the elite class, and they don't even know what it's being done to them because they think they're on their side. It's so sad.
Yeah, to be a politician is to be a professional liar. So, I mean, to put any stock of truth in that is kind of foolish. I was really struck by something you said in the movie about like the Coney 2012 phenomenon and how just trying to like bring things to light is an effort to solve things, but it never works. And that really paralleled your experience with Kelly, is that he's fully aware. He's not delusional about the issues in his life or the effect that it's causing, but it did nothing to change it. Nothing changed. So my question for you is, what do you think is like the best path forward in trying to fix these issues, if not just bringing them to light?
What issue in particular do you think you're talking about?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, specifically with Kelly, I would like to know about like a personal response for like, how would you repair his family? Obviously the onus is on him, but if you were Kelly, what would you do?
Man, it's just so tough because there's, in a perfect world, he would have came back from therapy and realized like, yo, I've taken the politics thing too far. I want to be a more active father again. But, I'm not sure if it was the treatment center itself emphasizing like his cannabis addiction so heavily that allowed him to externalize everything that happened and think like it was the weed. I mean, if anything, time will tell. I think that a lot of people were disappointed by the ending. Does it come full circle as you're conditioned to believe people are supposed to after interventions because of reality TV? But if you look at the small wins, I mean, him not caring about Bill Joyner, if you were to compare that to 4 years before, actually 3 years before, him almost in tears of anger outside the Planned Parenthood, literally almost passing out while screaming about Bill. That to me is a huge stride forward. It might not be the stride forward that everybody expected or his family wanted, but it's better than nothing.
The weed. Do you think that there can be some sort of like weed induced psychosis that makes people fall into paths of extremism?
Oh shit! I feel like my everything is wrong. So I did a Q&A at a showing in Portland, Maine, where someone asked me that exact question, and I just responded like, yeah, for sure, because I felt like they wanted to hear that answer. I was like, yeah, I think nobody should smoke weed. It makes you crazy. Turns out there was a journalist in the front row from a publication called Beer and Weed Magazine. I looked up and there was this article that was like inside Andrew Callahan's new cannabis hit piece, Dear Kelly. So I'm trying to avoid hating on weed. However, I am kind of anti-weed in general. Like, people should be able to smoke weed. I don't think it's going to ruin your life, but I do think it hijacks your reward systems. And if you're already susceptible to like schizophrenia, I think it can worsen those symptoms, especially if you smoke 5 times a day for 40 years. I'm sure it didn't help him, but Kelly was also smoking weed when he was like an active father. It's like I think that it provided a coping mechanism that could have otherwise been filled by like hard work. But I mean, I think there was a world in which Kelly could have continued to smoke weed from time to time and been an active father. I'm not sure if it's the American rehab industry that incentivizes like classifying people as addicts and trying to emphasize sobriety. I don't know. But either way, I think that there's a world in which if Trump doesn't deliver his promises and America continues to kind of be not the best place for people, that he might realize that he was deceived at some point. Or let's say America becomes awesome. And all of a sudden, Kelly was right. You don't know what's going to happen. That's what I was saying too. Like, we are left leaning as a channel, but if positive things are starting to happen in the country to the economy and stuff, we're not going to go out of our way to try to make Trump look as bad as possible. You know what I mean? Like if things start going well, that's a good thing. I feel like so many people are just poisoned by this either pro-Trump or anti-Trump sentiment to where they're going to look for like, America, we could have the lowest gas prices ever. And somehow a lot of these publications will figure out a way to, pivot that against Trump in some capacity. I'm not going to do that. I don't think every Trump supporter is like off the deep end like Kelly was at the beginning of the movie. So I'm not going to make it seem like they all need psychiatric intervention. Mm-hmm. But I do think that some of these people, if they get disappointed after Trump's win, will kind of ease up. About bias too. It's so messed up because, in journalism school, they teach you that journalism is the fourth estate and that you have to be unbiased. But every person carries unconscious or conscious biases based upon who they are, where they're from, the experiences they had growing up. Like I was just telling you, losing friends to police brutality as a young person made me very much emotionally charged about the murder of George Floyd when that happened, and very sympathetic to the protesters in Minnesota. Now, if I grew up in a small town in Iowa and my dad was a cop and he was a hardworking guy who everyone loved, and he really actually did like save kittens out of trees and shit and houses when they're on fire, I might approach that differently. So I would rather let people know that I'm a little bit biased when it comes to certain stuff, so they know that walking into it. If you promise somebody, hey, I'm unbiased, bro, I don't fucking have any opinions about anything. The moment you take a stand, they're going to call you a hypocrite, which I don't want to happen.
Yeah. How do you feel about how society's shifted recently? I feel like there's been this kind of palpable change from like the super woke like 2020s to now this a more reactionary republicanism. And this is just the pendulum swinging back and forth. But it's interesting to live kind of as it swings. How do you think things are to change?
Well, it's sad because I think that, everyone says like woke is over. But the thing is, leftist people never even had any power in the first place. There's no sizable leftist political party in America. There's only liberals who, in my opinion, are conservatives. And what they've done strategically, I believe, to undermine any type of solidarity among leftists is plant this like extreme individualism among leftists, where it's like, if I disagree with you, I can't hold space for your opinion. And they emphasize identity over everything else above qualifications, life experiences, and create this like privilege pyramid that is not really translating to like real life experience. And so what's happened is that you have on the other end, conservatives, they disagree on a bunch of different shit. You have people at Trump rallies who are like these ayahuasca taking, weed smoking, Bitcoin libertarians, alongside people who are Christian fundamentalists who actually believe that marijuana was created by the devil to seduce white women into having interracial children. And they're all just chilling, wearing the same hat, being like, look, bro, we disagree, but we can all agree that these liberals have taken shit too far. Then on the other hand, you have people, you know, on the left tearing each other down relentlessly, sometimes for almost no reason, alienating people, systematic social exile, no camaraderie, no solidarity, and just it's like Lord of the Flies on the left right now. And it's been that way for a long time. Unfortunately, the woke causes, some of them are actually real. So
Yeah.
saying like, oh, woke is over. I think it's good that social media censorship is coming to a close. I think it's good that identity politics is kind of being revealed as a corporate, you know, news media scam to a certain extent to divide working class people. However, there is real things going on and real inequalities that are happening. And, you know, the hood hasn't changed. So I just don't understand when people say woke is over. I don't know. I don't see how that's a good or bad thing. I mean, it just depends where you're looking at it from.
Yeah. Do you see any path forward in like restructuring kind of like more left-leaning ideology?
No, it's not possible, especially if you look at gentrification and you look at most of these like vocal leftists are themselves the children of conservatives who are repopulating these urban areas, pushing people who are traditionally like, you know, lower income into new ghettoized suburbs and like these sort of elitist liberal enclaves in the inner cities and forcing others out. There's just too much white guilt and class guilt for any conversations to be had, you know, especially with this college campus culture that's emerging. I think Columbia University is a perfect example. You got all these kids out there who are Columbia students calling their school, their Ivy League school, evil for investing in Israel. But then ask these kids to drop out and they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So you want your school to divest from Israel, but you are okay with paying $75,000 a year in your school who's supposedly funding this like genocidal regime. So the cognitive dissonance, especially in the gentrified urban corridors, is louder than whatever working class conversations are happening. So it's basically we're doomed like no matter what. It's just a matter of when.
So shifting more back onto the movie, how much did it cost to produce?
Damn, that's a good question. Let me try to think. I'm gonna go ahead and say like $500,000.
No way. Really?
Is that hella? Okay, think about it, right? So
I mean, this is a lot of money. In the movie scheme, it's pretty cheap, I would say.
okay, for marketing, $40K in total, because we bought a billboard in the Mojave Desert and we have wheat pasting around LA. Editing cost probably $150K.
Okay.
I mean, from digitizing VHS tapes to like hiring assistant editors to do color passes and audio mixing, and then the actual studio monologue, like in the liminal space where there's objects everywhere, that costed $15K. So not 500,000. I would say in total, I would put it at 175, 200, which means we just broke even opening weekend, which is great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And your movie's been getting a lot of love, so hopefully there's another one.
Has it? I haven't even been reading shit. I've just been filming.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, people are loving it. It's very positive reception. I think I already know the answer to this, but how has your experience been doing a self-produced film versus doing one that's with a big studio?
Well, I mean, for one, let's keep it real here. The studios give a lot better marketing because in reality, most people are already signed up for Netflix or HBO. So if you say you have a movie on there, they're just going to log on right now and watch it. It's a little bit harder when you have to get someone to go to a website and put in their credit card info, but it's also a more intimate viewing experience. When you actually go to somebody's website through their like privatized web portal and you're like with them, it's almost like having somebody buy a book or something. Like they're sitting down with it. They're not going to go and watch, you know, some other documentary because they get bored. There's no other video files on the website. So it's been good. I mean, I've already made more money in box office in 1 week off of Dear Kelly than I did for the HBO project in 2 years. So
Oh, wow.
that's good. I mean, in general, it's just you trade one thing for another. And our plan is still to shop Dear Kelly to streamers after like 2 or 3 months of independent marketing.
Nice. Would you say that that's kind of like a solid plan, kind of moving forward with your next projects of like self-produce them and then ship them out to streamers?
Yeah, because they tell you they can't do that. If you bring this up to a streamer, like you just know their internal group chats are going up because they're like, that's the one thing they tell you can't do. They tell you you trade intellectual property rights over to a streaming service, and in return, you get the publicity, which is great because down the line, you can do your own thing. However, what they don't tell you is you can self-distribute with your own marketing apparatus. You can run your numbers up, take those numbers to Netflix, and they're going to be like, fuck yeah, a half million people paid for this movie. You know, I'm sure people would love it abroad. They have actors and, you know, the Chinese market's big, this, you know, French, Spanish, all that shit. So yeah, that's the plan moving forward. And I want to give it to them for like a year or two, but then have them ultimately return rights back after a period of time.
Smart. Speaking of other language distribution, how has Canal Cinco been doing?
And Alseco's been doing pretty good. I just went down to the border and met up with our Latin American correspondent, Josue, physically through the border fence. It was his
Oh yeah, I saw those pictures.
punching American air. So that shit was pretty tight. I mean, I love like Latin America. I love speaking Spanish. It's definitely a demographic that I want to engage with more. I want to live there at some point to really get good at Spanish. But yeah, it's good. We have a separate channel for it right now, but you know, it's still kind of stalling a bit because it takes us a week to get the overdubs like done.
Yeah.
We have an external company doing it, like somebody else in Pittsburgh. So what we're trying to do in our headquarters here in California is actually build a overdubbing studio with like in-house voice actors, because I feel like Canal Cinco won't really grow until we can drop shit the same day. So when it comes out, if I'm doing a video, I say, hey, if you want to watch this in Spanish, go to Canal Cinco within the first minute. Otherwise, you know, it's if our Spanish audience is always perpetually 1 week behind releases, they're not going to feel too included.
No. And your stuff is so time sensitive. You're reporting on literal breaking news. So to have that in another language immediately, I think, is invaluable.
Yeah.
That intrigues me though. What does your studio setup look like? How many people work for your company? How big is your building?
So we're inside of a building near Universal Studios. My first office ever. If I was on a laptop, I'd move around, but this is a desktop. We have one office manager, one social media manager, and then 4 editors. So I think the team is like 8 deep, and then we have like 4 correspondents, one in Israel, one in New Zealand, one in Latin America, and then one in the UK. So I think the team is like 10 or 15 deep. I have like my personal manager.
Nice. It's so cool to think how like with the way media is now, you can have such a lean team, because news stations in the past were huge. I mean, giant operations with a lot of overhead. So you're a lot more nimble in like how you do things.
Yeah, it's definitely sick, you know, but in an ideal world, I'd be a part of a newsroom, you know, but unfortunately that career path ended right around the time that I started going to college for this shit, you know?
Yeah. So you would never want to like interact with traditional publishing at all. You'd
No,
always
you can't trust any of them. You know, you can't, I'm not really friends with any journalists unless they're independent, you know what I mean? Or they work for a magazine, you know, some cool shit, like you actually know the people who run it. But I mean, if somebody works for like CNN, Rolling Stone, like I don't even want to get near them because they're compromised. They can, you know, I remember one time I had a guy who worked for Harvard Magazine, right? He shadowed us for an entire merch commercial shoot in Boston, right? We let him sleep in the RV. We introduced him to everybody on the team. We were so nice to this dude. Alongside us was our co-host Saddam. So, you know, and Saddam is African, whatever. I don't give a fuck what Saddam's race is. But the Harvard guy asked me, he goes, have you considered, you know, diversifying your news force a bit more? Because I see that, you know, it's still mostly white except for Saddam. And I was like, I don't know, Saddam, do you feel weird that we're white? And he was like, no, everything was good. This motherfucker runs an article that's like, Andrew Callaghan refuses to expand diversity in the newsroom. And he had somebody from Oakland, like he went to Oakland, which is a majority Black city, and he found someone off the street to speak to it. He was like, many Channel 5 fans in the majority Black city of Oakland feel that Andrew's not doing enough. And it's like some dude quoted being like, that motherfucker Andrew needs to hire more Black people. And I was like, dog, this is so fried. And that's a guy who smiled in my face. And independent journalists do that because they can't hide behind an institution. You know? I just think journalists, a lot of them are the scum of the earth. Seriously, they're bottom feeders.
Has that perspective affected your marketing efforts at all?
Yeah, of course. They don't want to cover us unless they can say something negative about us. For example, if I was to go record myself at the airport yelling at somebody with a mask, being like, pandemic's over, loser, we're fucking, then they would. Controversial filmmaker has conservative meltdown. That's what they want. They're not going to be like, independent filmmaker breaks records for opening weekend. They don't want to do that. But at the same time, we don't need them. And by the time I'm as old as the owners of those publications, they're going to be obsolete. So I don't need to go to them. I'm just going to sit back until they're gone.
Yeah, they're just trying to mousetrap you so they can get clicks for advertisers.
And the number one thing that they want me to become is a conservative grifter. I don't know why they want that so bad. I'm not even close to that. In fact, conservatives think that I'm some kind of leftist grifter. I mean, I get like anti-Semitic hate mail every day. I'm not even Jewish. It's hilarious for me to like actually try to get bullied by conservatives every day. And then the traditional press wants to, I think the press, the liberal mainstream press, has a vested interest in making leftists seem conservative. Like, it's weird.
Why?
because we reject things like identity politics,
Mm.
like merit based upon how you look and not what you know and where you've been, just shit like that. You know,
Yeah.
we elevate, like, we think class is generally more important than anything else. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
they try to make you seem crazy for saying that shit.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other things too. Like we're not invested in talking shit about Trump all the time. We're invested in making the bottom line higher for working people who struggle and suffer in the U.S. every day. You know, that's not a high horse stance. Everybody used to be about that, but now they would rather infight and keep people distracted. And that's why they're scared of Channel 5, is because we're actually independent.
Yeah. Do you ever struggle with, obviously you're like the total face of this operation, so you're incredibly visible and vulnerable to all these attacks. Do you ever wish that you had like an institution that you could hide behind?
Well, yeah, for sure. But I mean, this is the path I chose, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I wouldn't have chosen this path and taken a more, you know, laid back approach to life. But, you know, I know what I signed up for, you know, and they're going to do it again and again and again.
Yeah. It's tough because everything that you do is online. So there's like this constant treadmill that's running where you can become like obsolete if you don't just keep pumping out content.
Yeah, it does suck. But
Yeah.
I do feel that, you know, I'm in a position where if I wanted to take 2 months off, people would be stoked when I'm back. You know, I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
People like out there, like if you think about a Nathan Fielder or something, you know, Nathan doesn't do a show. He does a show like every 4 years. And people are stoked. Kendrick Lamar drops an album every 5 years, and you know, he still comes back and he sweeps. So I think once you've established yourself as like an institution, which I'm getting close to being able to do, I'll be able to take more time off and people will understand why.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit. I have some trivia questions for you. See how well you know your own movie. I'll start off with an easy one. For most of the movie, Kelly's wearing a red hat with white lettering on it. What does it say?
1776 Forever Free.
Absolutely. Perfect. How many animals does Kelly have?
47.
Double-digit cats, double-digit rabbits.
That's right.
All right, last one. How many haircuts do you have in the movie?
Oh, fuck. Did you actually keep track of that?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to go ahead and say 6.
No, 5.
Oh,
Very
shit.
on brand for you.
What are they?
You have, well, 3 of them are kind of variations on the same haircut. You have the clean cut, you have kind of medium, and then a very long. And then you debut at 54 minutes, some tight braids.
Yeah, right. People were actually mad about that. Bro. People were mad as fuck. To me, that's my favorite Easter egg in the movie is the cornrows. I see people on Xbox being like, "Is he seriously wearing cornrows?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll do it again too."
Did you braid it yourself?
No, I didn't. I had a friend do it.
Yeah, and then the last one you have a shaved head and like a trucker stash.
Yeah, dark times.
Yeah. It's like when a girl cuts bangs when a guy shaves his head.
Yeah, a guy shaving your head is some seriously dark shit. I mean, in a way, like I do kind of. My mom says I have like a pretty nice like head shape, you know, in the back. So
Yeah, no flat.
yeah, I don't have a flat head, so that's cool. But yeah, no, this current hairstyle is good though. I'm gonna keep it like this.
Yeah, the classic.
Yeah.
Is there any last things that you wanted to talk about the movie or new projects that you got coming on?
No.
Cool. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. I really appreciate it.
And if you make a cool video about the trivia, like you can invite me as a collaborator. I'll share that shit for sure.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I would love that.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood is blind.
Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News.
Channel 55, we don't fuck with custers. And 5 is the best number.